Welcome to this edition of SAC News in Focus. I'm Andrew Lapp. Associated Student Government. It's comprised of over 35 elected officials here at SAC. And today, from our own ASG, we have Liz Weber and Juan Esqueda. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Liz, you're the PR commissioner, I believe, and Juan's ASG president, right?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So, Juan, you were telling me before we came on here that it's actually only your third year here at SAC. Can you tell me what it's been like to, basically have a lot of your time that you've spent here at college kind of revolve around ASG?
Yeah, so typically my first year I was just involved with maybe a club. I would go into have one meeting probably once a week, and that was just it, and then going to school. But then as I heard about ASG, I'm like, oh, this sounds pretty interesting, something I could probably do. And with every position I've taken, it's become more responsibility. I've actually had to just keep a notebook with me of everything I have to do for ASG. It's pretty stressful, but in the end, it's all worth it to me because it's something I'm really passionate about. It's serving students and just serving the community as well.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. I want to go back to one thing that you mentioned there, which was ICC. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be you, Liz, if you want to step in. Could you tell me maybe what that stands for, what that is? Mm-hmm. Give viewers a little bit of a taste of what that is.
So the ICC is our Inter-Club Council. So at Santa Ana College, we're composed of a plethora, over 20 different clubs. Mm-hmm. So for the most part, they all have to have their positions, their president, their vice president, and an advisor. But they're able to get together and start a club on campus based on those, and just to fill any needs that any of the students have to really build that community while they're there at campus. Some of them, for example, are Honor Society, our Fire Tech, our Environmental Club. They do a lot in regards to community service, not just there on campus, but outside of campus. So it really does, we like to think of it as Maslow's pyramid, where we're at least dealing with the relationships and building those on campus. Yeah,
and so ICC, is that comprised of you mentioned each club has their own president. Mm-hmm. Is ICC each club's president, or is there a specific representative from each club that's supposed to go to ICC? Yeah. What does that look like?
So there's typically an ICC representative for every single club, and you could have an alternate. Okay. But on a weekly basis, they get together with the ICC executives. So the same thing that ASG has a president, a vice president, so does the ICC. Different issues that may be coming up or events that may be coming up will be addressed or brought up there. And then that gives the clubs the opportunity to actually come together and collaborate on some of these issues that they may actually have a common need or goal.
Mm. So you kind of collaborate. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Our environmental club, for example, will go do weekly hikes, and they'll actually pick up some of the trash along the way. So that's their way of giving back, or they'll do beach cleanup. Our literary club, for example, there's poems that get published in short stories from SAC students. So for example, last week they were selling used books, and then the funds that they use for that goes toward the publishing of those new books every year.
Okay. Okay, yeah. And so, I noticed earlier when I was doing a little bit of homework on ASG, ICC is obviously a part of ASG, but what are some of the other branches and what are their responsibilities?
Yeah, so there's an executive branch that composes of your normal president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, but then there's also commissioners. So they're kind of like the events.
And that's what you are, right, Liz?
Yes, that's what she is. She's our PR commissioner, as you said earlier. So that focuses on kind of the event planning. And then there's also a legislative branch. There's the ones that deal with kind of issues with our budget or anything that needs to get passed for approval to do anything. Mm-hmm. So there's senators, and that's what makes up the legislative branch. Senators of social sciences, technology, senator of business, and then kind of going back to executive, I didn't say that. So there's PR commissioner, a legislative commissioner, a sustainability commissioner, sorry. And then lastly,
and all this can be found online too, right?
Exactly.
On the SAC ASG website?
Right.
Okay.
And then lastly would be just our judicial branch, which is composed of 6 associate justices with 1 chief justice, kind of dealing with student conduct, disciplinary action, and then our constitution. So yeah, that's what it.
Yeah, when I saw that we did have like a judiciary branch in our ASG, I did have like kind of a question. And then when you mentioned earlier, before we were live, that you actually were part of the judiciary, could you tell me like a little bit about that experience and like what were like, I don't know, maybe some of the trials or cases you heard or anything like that?
Well, okay, so during the time that I served, which is 2016 to 2017, we didn't really have anything in regards to cases being brought to us, which is good. That means no big offenses were happening in regards to our students, which is typically when we'd get called together or to vote on disciplinary action. But one of the things last year that was definitely championed between us was the OCTA deal that came to us. So that was something that we were able to come together, vote on as a collective, and then pass that along so that the student body was able to vote on it last spring.
And so that's, just to be clear, that's the one about student IDs can now be used for bus passes? Is that what that, okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I just wanted to be clear on that. All right, and so the judiciary, I actually did have one last question about that. So you mentioned conduct, would that be, include cases like plagiarism or like just like general misconduct, stuff like that too?
So for example, if something happened to where a student may be getting considered for expulsion or suspension, that would be something that would be brought up to us as students to be able to deliberate on.
Okay, very cool. Awesome. Well, thanks guys. We're gonna go to a break real quick. Still to come on SAC News in Focus, we'll talk more with Juan and Liz about what ASG does for students on campus.
My name is Kevin. I'm a military veteran returning to school, and I'm a student at Santa Ana College. I went to an art school in Los Angeles for 2 years. I realized things were getting pricey and expensive. I was tired of hearing my parents talk about the financial issues we have. At the same time, I also had a desire ever since I was a little kid to join the military. So I enlisted in the United States Air Force for 4.5 years, and immediately at the same time I got out of the military, I got hired at Disney. I chose online classes because I'm able to have time management with my priorities outside of school and also with school. I'm able to control my life. My advice for a student thinking about taking online classes is you got to be on top of your game. You have to make sure you have time to do your online classes. It might be easy to forget that you have homework due and quizzes to take. So you just definitely got to be on top of it. I would say online classes are just the same type of difficulty as face-to-face class. Do the coursework, read the chapters, take the quiz. You still have deadlines just like actual classes. It's been a year and I'm able to speed up the process where I'm going to be getting my associate's degree this December and we'll be transferring for spring. So online classes definitely helps me reach my end goal faster.
Welcome back to SAC News in Focus. We've been speaking with Liz and Juan from SAC's own ASG about how the group operates and their experience as leaders in the student government. All right, guys, so let's get back to the discussion. I was kind of hoping to hear, before we went to break, we talked a little bit about, some of the things that ASG is involved in, like with the judiciary, with the ICCC, but I was hoping we could maybe get down to a little bit more specifics and talk about, some of the events that ASG either has a hand in or puts on themselves. And so, the floor is open.
Yeah. So some of the events we've always put on our cultural events. So it would be, our most recent one was our Native American Heritage Celebration. That was just last week. And then some upcoming events would probably be our Black History Month, our Women's Day history, just stuff like that. In terms of other things that are coming up, rather sooner would be our final stress week. So what we like to do is just hand out like some goodies for the students, whether it be Scantrons, yes. Scantrons, blue books, and then also like maybe snacks. That's something we like to do for some events.
Okay, and where do you guys usually do that out of? Because I have been coming here for about a year and I have not gotten free snacks. I'd like to know, where is this?
Yeah, so we just do this all the main campus center. So we do it under the Johnson Center patio. That's the U building. And that's where mostly our events have been occurring since like the whole campus is under construction. Yeah, that's where they hand.
Okay, and actually, it's interesting you bring up construction because obviously, like that's a big topic right now. Like campus looks like a war zone. But are you guys at all involved in that? Like I think you mentioned earlier, the legislative branch, they kind of deal with like the approval of, I don't know, like some
like
fiscal
budget,
stuff like that. Are they involved in that at all?
We sit on committees.
Yeah.
Oh, quite a few of us. So when you take on a position, for the most part, we're also being asked to sit on a committee. So like I'm on the Student Success and Equity Committee, so I'll go to those once a month and report back to the ASG, but all of us sit for the most part on one of the committees. So we do have somebody on the academic committee and the facilities committee, and then they report back to their branches when we have our weekly meetings.
Okay, and then so the committees, are those completely student committees or the students and faculty?
So
yeah,
it's all faculty, and then ASG sends one representative to that committee meetings, and that's where we could voice our opinions, and then we also get voting power. So it's not just left to the administrators making all the decisions. It's also us students. So, yeah.
Okay, so see, that's really interesting. Like I was really curious about like how much of a say like students in ASG have in a lot of this stuff. And then when these committees, like whenever they do like, pass anything or like, try to do a program, does that also have to go through ASG's legislature or anything like that?
Not legislator, but we bring it back to our meetings. So for example, some of the issues that are going on in my committee, I'll go ahead and take that back to our ASG meeting. So in my case, it'd be the executive meeting, and we would talk about it, maybe talk about how to help out. So one of the issues, for example, on my committee was a food pantry. So it's one of those things like, how can we reach out? How can we fill that need? It's something that on a campus, we know that the need is there. It's something that, unfortunately, due to the construction, we have limited space. So we don't have a place to store all this food. So how do we meet that need with the obstacle that we have ahead of us? So that's something that's being addressed in that committee that I'm able to take back to ASG, discuss it amongst us, and what we've been able to do is actually contact some of those resources off of the list that we got from administration, do follow-up calls, and try to see what we could do. There's nonprofits locally that, for example, could hopefully facilitate some of that need, even if it's just on a day-to-day or a once-a-month basis. But at this point, that's where we could step in and help administration too, or at least have a say.
Yeah, well, not just have a say, but like you said, like really, like
Try.
have a significant degree of help there because you're, something that would otherwise be impossible. You're kind of like making it happen, to some level, right? That's interesting, guys. Are there any other like kind of events like that ASG has a really big hand in? Like I know Club Rush. That's once annually. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's semester. Each semester.
Or each
they hold one.
semester.
Yeah, that's held by the actual interclub council. ASG does partake in it just by like providing some food, but mostly it's done by the interclub council that put it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, so the interclub council is not really like it's not a branch.
No, it's an extension of.
Okay.
So it's more of a way for every student to be able to participate, not have to go to through an election process. For example, we get elected into our positions, or at the beginning of the semester, if a position's empty, then you're able to apply for it, interview for it, and then take on the role. Some people can't give that level of commitment, so it's easier for them to be involved via a club. Like, hey, I have this interest and I really love photography. I just need something to fill in some of this extra time, and I don't know that many people at SAC. Photography club would be a great way to get them to interact, no big commitment. For example, we have volunteer hours that we do. We have meetings we need to go to. It's something that we definitely have to plan into our semester schedules when we're planning and picking our classes. So it is definitely a bigger commitment. But for those students that can't give that commitment but still want to have that kind of stability on campus or relationship,
The best way is through clubs.
it's more feasible, and there's so many to choose from. It really just depends on your interest or how you want to be involved. I mean, we have 3 different engineering clubs,
Yeah.
so it all depends on your likes and dislikes.
Okay. So, and even the process of starting a club, probably then, I mean, if you have 3 engineering clubs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's something that ASG helps with too, or the ICC?
the ICC and the ASG. I mean, we share the same office, so our advisors are in the same place, but they could definitely go to us.
Oh.
We'll definitely be there.
All right. So clubs is definitely the way for students to get involved
Yeah.
if they're not like going to go through the elected position.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Well, awesome, guys. Thank you so much for coming today. It's been a great show. We really appreciate your time. That's going to wrap up this week's edition of SAC News in Focus. We'd like to extend a gracious thank you to our guests Liz Weber and Juan Esqueda. Be sure to catch our regular edition of SAC News later this week, and don't forget to check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We'll see you next time.